winning the game in the end, and you realize that you barely won, and he made 50 turrets to deal with your one Void Ray, you would say to yourself, well, geez, if we made 50 turrets, and I only made one Void Ray, and it was still really, really close and hard for me to win, I'm doing something wrong. It ends up being pretty obvious, but this is just a good, nice, straightforward, nice, straightforward way to play. Or a good foundation for your strategy. So Whis-1 says, what I noticed is White Ra was missing detection. For example, in the first game, Maro had 3 ghosts, and he could have researched Cloak and made 1 bunker at his ramp to kill the probes. I mean, like, so ghosts with Cloak, definitely a little underexplored. For instance, I haven't ever seen anyone get a whole bunch of ghosts with Cloak and then wander into your probe line and just shoot all the probes to death, you know? Which is an interesting thought, but still, I don't think that... See, that Cloak doesn't really do much. If you have Cloak, sure, White Ra isn't going to be able to see it. And then what are you going to do? Are you going to get a beautiful EMP off? Are you going to be getting a beautiful snipe off? What's the purpose of the Cloak? And I can't really think of any, because still the issues at hand are you need a lot of Marines to deal with the Void Rays, and you need a lot of detection to be able to deal with the Dark Templar. Those are the 2 huge problems. So, yeah, doesn't really bother me. So, anyways, moving right down here. Oh yeah, so KZN says, you suggested players shouldn't ask for a build to fix a problem, but for me it helps to be shown a build that counters/works in the situation in question, so that I can see what features of the build are important in how it works and what kind of links I should be looking for between the problem and the solution. So I definitely don't want to say that, you know, never take ideas from any sources and never ask for any ideas. But the problem, the difference between what I'm talking about and what KZN is talking about is that there is this breed of player that literally thinks that a strategy is a build. That's what they think. They're synonymous with each other. If I said this is my strategy, they would think that I'm saying this is my build. And they would then say, oh, okay, well, since a build is just a whole bunch of steps, then just tell me what the steps are. And that is just not true. Strategies are basic, general, underlying ideas with things. So that's why the focus of this daily was, what is the general idea that White Ra is going for? And in this circumstance, it was just the way that Void Rays screws up the barracks composition of Terran. So in terms of what KZN is saying about, you know, a starting point, that's part of the reason why I like getting rep packs from players, and part of the reason why you should go to whitera.com and download all his replays, because you can look at White Ra and say, well, wow, I watched these 6 games of his Protoss vs. Terran, and he's doing something kind of the same in all these spots. Against an early expanding Terran, it looks like White Ra's double expanding. Against a 1-basing Terran, it looks like White Ra's just taking 1 expansion. And you get those general ideas. But remember, note that these are not builds. These are concepts that can help you sort of flesh things out. Once you get to the really tip-top high level, I'm talking about the absolute nosebleed levels of Diamond, that's when I think it's really important to be saying things like, yeah, maybe if you cut your 14th SCV here and delay this supply depot and then use, you know, supply drop here and get this upgrade at this seemingly way late time, then you can have a 30-second window where you need a micro really well and win. Like, you don't need to know that if you're anywhere below nosebleed. So I just tend not to get too into it. So let's see here. We'll just take one more question. And again, sincere apologies about the little crashing action going on. So let us see here. Oh yeah, DeGreen Bean says, Day 9, what would be the best way to deal with someone trying to control what you do? Which is a great question. If I am DeMusliM or Q-Tips or, you know, Galvan in these games, and White Ra forced me to make all of these barracks units, how do I end up dealing with it properly? So there are... It turns out not to be a really easy answer. It changes in a lot of circumstances. And this is part of the reason why I advise that you think of cool controlling strategies, so that way you're always putting the burden on your opponent. But I mean, the first part is don't overreact. That's exactly what one of the other players was saying, is try not to overreact, because when the question about overreacting was initially asked, I kind of said, well, I mean, they kind of have to do some stuff, but that is a concern if you are a player, is that I don't want to overreact. You know, like, I think that, for instance, in that first game, DeMusliM could have gotten away with 2 turrets instead of 3. And could have maybe pulled his Marines back a little bit better. Like those things. And those are a little bit subtle and have kind of small effects, small but positive effects, but aren't really the main crux. I'd probably say that the big thing that you need to do is sit down and think really hard about the best ways to deal with the strategy. So, part of the reason why White Ra's build worked so well is that his opponents kind of made the logical mistake. This is what I mean. Let's say I'm Morrow, and I have this really awesome opening where I do this Marauder pressure, and then I get 3 barracks, and then I push again with Marines, Marauders, and Ghosts. That is exactly what we saw in the second game today. Let's say I'm Morrow and I thought of that. And then, so I'm doing this, and all of a sudden Void Rays come in, and I go, whoa, I've never dealt with Void Rays before. Well, it seems like I've just held it off. Better go attack, because that's what I originally had planned. And that is what White Ra is dealing with, is that original plan to move out to attack. Now, over time, what players are going to do is say, all right, against Fast Robo, I'm going to be doing this Marine Marauder Ghost push. Against 4 Warp Gate, I'm going to be doing this Marine Marauder Ghost push. But if he goes Void Ray, I'm going to pull back and wait a little while. Or I'm going to completely abandon what I was intending on doing with a bunch of barracks. And I'm instead going to go for a bunch of starports. It's that sort of thing where, wow, you know, I really might have to do a deviation. And probably the third most important thing is, you know, just... there was a third and most important thing, wasn't there? And it was profound. What was the third most important thing about overreacting? Oh yeah, generally if you just play well and play calmly and try not to get too sucked into it, you can stick with your normal build and it ends up working really, really, really well. You know, like, if you're Terran and the Zerg player goes Mutilus and you have to make a bunch of Marines, you can then start making a whole bunch of tanks and move out with your push and just micro your Marines against these Banelings properly, and you should be okay. So tomorrow we're going to look at some Protoss vs. Protoss action by White Ra, and I'm going to be finding out what the hell happened with the lag today and get that all sorted out. And then after that we're going to get some Protoss vs. Zerg action going on. So PvP and PvZ. So always remember, the great lesson to take away from White Ra's play today is that you can do cool things with Void Rays. And if you are ever feeling lost in a matchup, think to yourself, well, if I made this unit, what would that force him to do? And then deal with that situation. And just play around with all the units in your head and see what you come up with, because it'll probably be pretty sweet. So with that, I am probably going to go drink something because my voice is so dry. So take care, guys, and see you later.